Hello everyone, it's me Jenny and it's time for another Naked Truth. Straight out of the shower, no makeup, wet hair, first take, one take, etc, etc. First take, one take, so I've got to, carry on with the fact that I just kind of basically had a stroke. Yeah, straight out of the shower, wet hair. Most people choose to do it naked, I choose not to, etc, etc. And this is going to be interesting for you guys because I'm actually going to probably post this video before the previous video, so you'll be seeing this one before seeing the one on millennial burnout, which I just filmed, and the reason why I'm putting that in this order is because I feel like this one has priority, and I kind of want to send it to Trisha pretty soon. So there we go, that's why I am filming this one second but posting it before. So also I'm not going to post them consecutively, I'm going to wait a day or two to post the millennial burnout one because I know you guys get a bit kind of startled if I post more than 2 videos in a week. So at least I'm going to, maybe 2 or 3 days time, you'll get the millennial burnout one. But hi, so, I've done a lot of talking in the last 10 minutes. On bad days, bad weeks. So this is something I've talked about in a couple of Naked Truths, and there's been a lot of issues that we've discussed previously about, anxiety, stress, depression. By the nature of Naked Truth, we do study and look at the more difficult topics in the world. And this can be one of those ones where I do choose my words carefully and maybe put some personal situations in a more abstract concept in order to discuss them. And again, for the sake of being vulnerable and honest, I did say this is a millennial burnout one. I've had a little bit to drink this evening. I feel like I am completely compos mentis, but again, for the sake of pure honesty, I'm not 100% sober and probably not safe to drive. But there we go. So the first mission of this video is money hugs slash digital hugs, because Trisha's had a bad day. So hugs, 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 hugs. If I was there, I'd give you a hug, but I cannot. But there we go. The thought is there, and hopefully this video will also act as some form of digital hug. I'm sorry you've had an awful, awful week by the sound of it, and I hope that myself and other members of the Naked community can help kind of, if not make it directly better, spur the mood into a slightly different direction, and also discuss what you're talking about everyone has a bad day. And everyone does, genuinely. There are times when the world is just awful, no matter how privileged your situation is. Similarly, when you can have what is objectively the worst situation in life, there are days when the sun shines. The human body is not built to always be happy or always be sad. You can suffer from physical depression where you are diagnosable, and there is a chemical imbalance in your brain where you feel like you can never be happy. And then you can have a moment where there's joy and you can see the rainbow. And that doesn't mean that that chemical imbalance is not there, it just means that every single person has a yin and yang in them. Similarly, people who live gifted lives can have sad days or sad weeks or sad months. And there is a lot of times where I have been sad and I don't talk about it, and like Trisha says, she finds herself regressing into herself and regressing away from social media when times are bad. And I can 150% relate to that. I will hide from social media, I will hide from Facebook is the biggest culprit of it, where I will get pure Facebook anxiety and I will not want to go near it for months at a time. But also Twitter and YouTube and Twitch, I will get very, very anxious about that and I will want to pull away because I'm very much in the thought process that, why share my negative energy if I'm feeling sad? And it has also happened in reality, outside of the internet world. There was a particular time in my life when I was going through, hindsight, probably pure depression. At the time I thought I was being dramatic, or I thought I was being, I don't know, it's hard to describe how I really felt at the time, but in hindsight I probably was genuinely depressed. Because I pulled away from everyone. I pretty much completely skimped out on calls from my sisters, from my family. I hid from my housemates at the time. I literally would close the door during the day and keep it locked. And if anyone knocked on the door, I'd hide. I'd only listen to things through my headphones. And I wouldn't, even when I went outside, I'd only go outside when it was raining so I could hide underneath my umbrella. So I didn't have to look anyone in the eye. And that's how extreme my regression away from people became when I was sad. And that was a particularly rough point in my life, and I feel like I'm past that point now. And I'm into the point now that if I am feeling sad or withdrawn, I know my sisters are there. I 100% know that, and I know my parents are there, and I know I have friends I can reach out to no matter how sad I'm feeling. But I also know I have better coping mechanisms for when I am feeling really emotionally stressed. Like there's things like you know, productive ways of dealing with pain, things like exercise, music, diary writing, which I haven't done for years, but there was a point where that was a lifeline, where expressing myself in words was really a way to at least get them out of me, and kind of analyse from an outside perspective. Things like, again, dancing, like finding a corner to dance. I think there's a Florence and the Machine song, which is at some point it's like, find a rooftop to sing from, find a hallway to dance. And during summertime, when I'm so stressed out at work and so exhausted physically and mentally, there was a point where I just found a hallway to dance. I just plugged in my headphones and used them to drown out my mind and just danced. And I find that that can be really useful. There's a lot of things which my sister says something, which I, again, I've probably mentioned in Naked Truth at some point, which is don't confuse physical signs with psychological symptoms, which is basically means sometimes your body is telling you you're physically lacking something and it's causing an emotional reaction. So quite a lot of that time, that's hangry, or equivalent. The sugar time sadness is another way of saying it. So, you know, if you're feeling really, really sad and really anxious and you don't know why, try sitting down, having a glass of water, having a cup of tea, and eating something. And if you're still not feeling better, try jumping up and down for 5 minutes, try fake laughing, you know, physically change what your body is doing, because your body might be saying something that your mind is reacting to rather than your mind saying something that your body is reacting to. So yeah, that feeds in. Something I said in my video that you will watch probably the next couple of days, if you do watch, on the Millennial Burnout, it's still got a nose. I won't really explain that now because I did explain it in the video that I've just filmed, but still got a nose. In the end, we've made it to adulthood and we've still got all of our limbs for the most part, and we can still do a lot of things that people in previous generations could not do. So be thankful for what you have, which is such a, when you're feeling sad, someone telling you be thankful for what you've got, be thankful for what you have, you've got loads, you've got privilege, is not helpful. But focusing in on yourself and saying, what do I have? What do I have to be grateful? Not an outside person saying that, but you yourself saying, what do I have right now? What is my foundation? What is something that I can hold on to right now, which is mine? What is mine? What is something I can control? What is something that I can be proud of, that I can focus on right now when I'm feeling sad? Having a grounding is really useful. Sorry, I've made notes today. I usually don't, but I did make notes because it's such a complicated issue. One of the things that I'm grateful at the moment is I don't have any dependents, and I know that's a very strange thing to be grateful for, but it's something that means that I have a slightly outside perspective on a lot of the issues that Trisha brought up this week. So I don't have any offspring, I don't have a significant other at present. I have a housemate, I have sisters, I have parents, I have my parents' cats, which I grew up with, but I am not physically wholly responsible for them. They are all outside excursions into my life. They are people that I can reach out for support, and if they need support, I will be there. If there is something physically that I can do to help them, I will be there for them, but their life is not dependent on mine. And that's something that I can be very grateful for, because I don't have that pressure that parents have, that people who have dependents do have. So it's very hard for me to kind of empathise in the same way as someone who's not a parent. I don't have someone whose life is dependent on my life, but a lot of what I can do and what I can suggest is, you know, friends will help, family will help. If they can, they will. And even if it means spending a little bit of extra money, if it means, you know, taking a step back and thinking, actually, asking for help is the best thing to do, then maybe that's the best thing to do. And yeah, I don't know how to help in this situation. When it comes to people being ill in your family or your friendship groups, it's devastating because it's that lack of control. I have some connections that have had cancer. I've had some connections that have possible aneurysms, which, you know, the residual stress from them is heartbreaking, because there is nothing more you can do for these people other than try your best to support them, and a lot of the time there's nothing that can be done. And it's devastating. And again, even these people who aren't my dependent, these people that don't rely on me for their existence or their livelihood, you know, I can still empathise with them and feel responsible for their pain, even though I am entirely not. And there is nothing I can do to help them. So I don't really know how to suggest a coping mechanism for that, other than, you know, you can't help them if you don't look after yourself. You know, there's only so much you can do for others, and you can't do anything for them at all if you can't look after yourself. When it comes to physical pain, and you know, the stuff that Trisha talked about abdominal pain and not looking after herself, something that I think I've skirted on, but I'm going to go into slightly more detail than usual, is period pain. And I think I've discussed this before, but kind of abstractly. So at a point a couple of years ago, for the first 2 days of my period, I would have intensive pain to the point where I was throwing up, I was unable to move, I was unable to work, and it was devastating for me because I'd have to leave work. I wasn't able to work, I wasn't able to get out of bed because I would throw up, I would get spins, I would be in so much pain. And now I'm on prescription medication for that. And there's nothing I can do about it other than control it. But there is a point where there's only so much you can do to counteract those physical things. Sometimes you are going to be physically ill and there's nothing you can do about it. And a lot of that stuff is triggered by stress. And I feel like a lot of the stuff that has changed in the last year that made the pain more manageable for me is stress control and stress management. As I said, music, dance, physical exercise, eating right, sleeping right, they all contribute. And if you're feeling physically and emotionally run down anyway, those things are going to have a higher impact. I remember one time, I won't say who I was travelling with, but I was travelling with some people to Austria, and I was kind of ill on the way in. I remember throwing up in the car park, and then the person who I was travelling with, they got so ill in the airport. They were throwing up, they were pale, they were in so much pain, that we had to leave on the flight without them. 2 people stayed behind and caught up with us in a couple of days and had to go into hospital. And it was one of those things where I felt so helpless because we didn't want to lose all the money from the flight. So some of us went on and 2 of us stayed behind to look after the person who was ill. And it was one of those just helpless feelings. And it was, I can remember empathising with this physical pain and not knowing how to respond to it. And you just kind of, when it comes to dependents or people that you're close to getting ill and not having any control, it is horrible. But I've got the feeling that a lot of, in hindsight, knowing what I know now, that person getting ill was due to stress. It was due to the travelling anxiety. It was due to not eating right and not sleeping right the night before and not looking after themselves. And there is something that we could have done about that if we'd realised that that situation was going to occur. We could have got a later flight, we could have not travelled through the night, we could have done so much to make that situation lessen. But by the time we got to the point we're at, it was just devastating for everyone because of this divide while travelling. So yeah, anyway, I don't really know why I thought of that particular story, but it was something that came to mind and I made notes on it, so there we go. I've already talked about pulling away from social media and pulling away from actual socialising. So when it comes to feeling sad, there's not always healthy ways to deal with it, and I've mentioned a couple of healthy ways to deal with it. But again, when I was at my most sad time in my life, there were unhealthy ways that I dealt with things. Pulling away from people being one of the primaries, but I also didn't eat well, I didn't sleep well, and those were active choices I made in order to control the situation at hand, but also in some ways to make the emotional feeling that I had at the time correlate with the physical one. It was something that I wanted people to see that what I was going through was more than just my emotions, which is such a, like, it's a conundrum of statements that just keeps on going round and round and down this rabbit hole of the more physically showing I am, the more emotionally damaged that I'll feel less damaged if I feel more physically damaged. If I'm more physically damaged, you feel more emotional, and round the rabbit hole it goes. And there is a lot of negative emotional triggers that I have from that time. And my camera stopped filming again. I really need to work out how to reset that. Anyhow, there's a lot of physical triggers that I had from that time, which were very negative coping mechanisms that led to that spiral and continued that spiral that I had from that time, which still come to the surface. They scratch their way to the surface when I am feeling sad or stressed or tired, and fighting those impulses is really hard. I have a particular colleague that I won't name who really they are very frustrating to work with a lot of the time, and sometimes they're very inconsiderate, and that's not something that I can change currently, or it's not something that I can change because it's a staple of the personality and I don't have that authority, but sometimes I just want to yell at them. Working with you reminds me of the feeling of anxiety I had when I was not healthy. Like, sometimes working with them makes me feel like I physically want to do harm for myself, which is such a horrible thing to think about them. It is so terrible. It is so awful to think that. And it's not their fault, and most of the time it is due to other factors all creeping into each other and just this one person scratching at my nerves. But what it shows to me is there are triggers deep in my psychiatry, and deep psychological triggers, that from the time that I was really, really sad, there were things that my thought process would click towards which weren't productive. And in a way I'm thankful for this colleague that really gets on my nerves, because it actually showed stuff about my psychology, which means that at least I know where those triggers are, and so I can counteract them with, as soon as I'm feeling those triggers, which are negative triggers, I can counteract them with positive triggers. The moment that person is starting to get on my nerves, I can be like, right, sugar, cup of tea, exercise, dance, whatever I need, and I can distance myself from that. Anywho, wow, these are 2 long videos in a row, and both of them are very, very vulnerable and honest. Yeesh. Final point, D&D and role-playing, I find them very therapeutic. I really do, to the point where when for some reason or another D&D gets cancelled for a week or 2 weeks, or I have a couple of weeks away, I definitely feel myself feeling less, like, I feel like it is kind of like, it's social therapy. And so I feel like it's one of the most productive ways to deal with social stuff, and if Trisha does do a video on Naked Truth on D&D, I'll be really excited to talk about that more, but I'm not going to. Basically, role-playing is really great psychologically, as long as you're with people that you trust, and are able to guide you through certain things. Anyway, I've been super duper vulnerable and honest today. Thank you to Captain Morgans for maybe making me say more than I wanted to say, and I'll regret them, and I was going to post this straight away, but I think I might leave it unlisted and send it directly to Trisha, and then maybe post it later on once I've had a chance to review it while sober. But there we go. Thank you for watching. Feel free to comment. I've talked about a lot today, so thank you all for watching. And I'll see you guys all when I do, hopefully for a Naked Truth that's on time. Now I'm caught up, I have 2 weeks In fact, I have 4 weeks until the next Naked Truth in order to actually get the next one up online, so hopefully it'll be up on time. Thank you for watching. I know there's been a lot, but I hope it was helpful for you. You know, talking about bad thoughts is always hard, but sometimes it's worth it, and maybe me talking about it right now has made someone else think about more productive ways of dealing with sad and bad days and thoughts and things. But there we go. Thank you for watching. Feel free to comment and I'll see you guys all when I do. Bye bye. Bye 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 bye.